At the age of 3 or 4, I started writing a book.
Did it put you young whippersnappers in your place?
Hardly. We laughed until our teeth fell out.
Little red pair of shoes with little brass buckles on them that I really loved. And I thought that buckle was a beautiful word, so I pointed to the buckle on one of these shoes and said, "Buckle."
It's Extreme Toddler Wrestling!
Buckle. I heard my mother talking about this little girl. Becky already knew how to read. I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to be beaten by her. She didn't seem especially intelligent to me, and I just knew I could out-accelerate her. I wasn't invited to my graduation. My head was too large to be fitted for a cap. The cranial circumference was too great. Couldn't buy a motorcycle helmet either.
So you have a large head.
Yes. Near as I can determine, it's about 6 standard deviations above the norm.
This is Chris, and he's the smartest person ever. Here's how we know he's an idiot. In this bell-shaped curve, if we measured millions of heads, Chris is saying 0.0000002% of people have a head as fat as his, as if head size is an indicator of intelligence.
The odds against having a head the size of mine are millions to 1.
And the odds of having an intelligence such as yours?
Also millions to 1, but we can't necessarily infer from that there's a correlation. We'd have to have more cases of big-headed, intelligent people.
A guy I went to school with to this day has the nickname Fathead, and he's not known for having a large brain. It's quite the opposite, in fact, and he'd give Chris a run for his money.
My own personal opinion is, yes, head size does influence intelligence.
Size does matter.
It has to. Size does matter. I mean, if you take a very small creature with a very small head, you're never going to see a lot of intelligence out of it. Take a centipede. How smart are they? Not very smart. On the other hand, take a house cat. Well, that's somewhat smarter. Take a larger-headed creature, a monkey, even smarter than a house cat. Now take a really large-brained creature like a man. Smarter still. It seems that there is some kind of correlation going there.
My logic is undeniable.
Welcome to Project Nihilist, everyone. I come across this guy, Chris, and he's apparently the smartest person ever. I know, you're already asking, well, how does he know that? What metric is he using to come to this conclusion? And it goes like this. Chris was too smart for school, dropped out of college, his jughead was too fat for his high school graduation cap, so he didn't even go, and he took an IQ test in a magazine that he come across.
He gave me an F!
This dude plays the role of a perpetual victim. The system was stacked against him from the start, and Daddy chained him up to wild horses, and his dorm buddies were getting laid while he was trying to sleep, and he was kicked out of university because he was late turning in his financial aid form, and they were out to get him because that's how academia is. Here's the best part. Somehow this asshole got on a game show with Bob Saget using this smartest man in America shit.
By the way, I have never had sex with him where he orgasmed. I tried so hard.
In such a world, the ultra high Q, what role do they play?
They are no better and no worse than anybody else, but they do have more responsibility.
Back in the day when he had the mullet, it was just easy. I could ride him anywhere, you know? Oh, whatever, like you didn't think it happened.
By virtue of their greater ability. Problems that they can solve that can't be solved by other people, it naturally falls upon them to solve those problems. And Trump is a plain speaker. He's not a professional politician.
Exactly.
Therefore, doesn't prevaricate.
Prevaricate.
The only problem I've seen Christopher solve is 2 + 2 = 4. This pseudo-intellectual has delusions of grandeur. He prattles on displaying these narcissistic tendencies. To me, it all comes across like a used car salesman trying to sell me a lemon and tell me I'd look like Vin Diesel in The Fast and the Furious, and all I see is a piece of shit Pinto.
That's what high intelligence does for you. It enables you to hold many different things in your mind simultaneously and all their interrelationships. I would hope to hold the whole universe in my mind. That's the dream of a lot of people. A lot of physicists, a lot of cosmologists, a lot of theologians and philosophers.
What would that feel like to hold the whole world in your mind?
He's got the whole world in his hands.
Wouldn't holding the whole world in your mind make you God?
As I think I explained, every human being is an endomorphic image of the mind of God. So yes.
It would be the most beautiful thing that they ever had seen.
I looked up that word, and of course, when you're a delusional narcissist, you go around telling everybody that you're a chubby god.
These vessels of meat, these prisons of flesh.
Chris goes on about this window of intellect that smart people could see through from up on high while looking down on us dummies below. Keep in mind, as we go backward through the video, Chris thinks 10-year-olds should be forced to be on birth control, and if they want to reproduce, they've got to apply, be pre-approved to procreate, and that he's the only acceptable donor.
Oh, yes.
The high IQ community can be a valuable step in the evolution of mankind by providing reportage that window exists and of what can be glimpsed through the window.
All they did was force the most intelligent of us to pair off and mate continuously.
Also, the marijuana. I mean, I wasn't used to the drug use that was all around. They crammed me in a room with 3 other guys.
Whatever.
Banging their girlfriends on the bunk above me in the other room.
Oh, poor daddy feeling hurt.
Is this a priesthood of intellect?
Beg your pardon?
Do the people in intelligence, your superiors, know that...
They certainly do, yes.
An elite who have the ability to partake of those higher levels. Yes, I'd say that there's probably an element of priesthood to it.
A church?
Not based on faith. A church that's based on logic and mathematics. A basis for cooperation that cannot be destroyed by religious quibbling, by theological differences.
Agitated grunt. I'm positive this genius couldn't pass an 8th grade math test. When I've heard him talk about logic, he says it's binary, yes or no. He isn't even aware of classical logic, identity, contradiction, excluded middle. Remember, in this guy's delusional nonsense, he's the Pope King God of his own daydream, and he's super special because he can drift away while he's bouncing bodies at a bar job and loud music is playing.
Have you ever met someone smarter than yourself?
As near as I can tell, no. And if somebody walked up right now and claimed to be smarter than me, I'd put him through his paces.
Day after day, I'm more confused.
I'd try to find out how sophisticated a picture of reality he'd evolved. Try to see what he was holding in his mind simultaneously and what he could do. I wouldn't give him necessarily an IQ test. I'd look at his productions.
Well, I'm gonna have to trust this mob. They're smart people. They've been right. So I'm gonna have to go with V. What?
Now you see why Professor Dave calls this guy a delusional narcissist. Let's jump into this 1 versus 100 clip where Chris just burned up his last 2 lifelines on a question about if who's on first, what's the second baseman's name? Like the answer was literally in the question. Apparently it's an Abbott and Costello skit that I've never heard of either. But what shouted out to me like it did most of the 100.
And when you're out of help, you get what we call a sneak peek. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek at the next question, not reveal any answers for you, and you can decide if you'd like to continue playing. With receipts of over 20 million, what's the highest grossing NC-17 rated movie?
It doesn't take a genius to duck out here. I would have too. Was it striptease? Was it showgirls? I seen them both before I was 17, and random facts don't make smart people smarter or rich people richer. What's messed up is Chris grifted and somehow got on this game show, and he still whines about being ignored for his brilliant intellect, deep insights, and other people getting his jobs.
They took our jobs!
Am I capable of understanding his productions? Is he capable of understanding mine? If the answer to that were in his favor, then I'd have to say he's more intelligent than I am. But that wouldn't necessarily stop me from doing what I have to do.
Oh, no. Oh, so awful.
Whew. All right, where was I?
Like the gorgeous!
There's a lot I don't have time to cover in this video. The original interview is 40 minutes long, and Chris tells a story about how he wanted to be a cop, and because of cronyism and nepotism, nobody give him an opportunity. Probably because he's a huge bullshitter, didn't go to police academy, and then there's that whole background check thing.
Is he out there? I doubt it. Could be. I don't rule it out. I'm not in complete control of reality.
Says the guy who whines nonstop about having any control. When he's asked what he would do if he was in control, he says some really stupid shit like this, having zero understanding of genetics and how mutations work.
Say you had the opportunity to run the world. How would you do it?
Oh, well, one of the first things that I would do is I would institute something like the Manhattan Project for a safe, long-lasting means of birth control.
Oh, my various gods!
I'm sorry, but Chris didn't actually just say that stupidity out loud, did he? The Manhattan Project was about the development of nuclear bombs during the Second World War. Is Chris seriously suggesting right now that we use nukes as birth control against 10-year-old children?
Simply implant that in all children at age 10. That would solve our population problem right off the bat, and it would also enable us to practice a benign form of eugenics. Or I should probably say anti-dysgenics.
You can't deny the logic. All you gotta do is nuke all the children, and your new world order can come to fruition. And all the pretty virgins can get pregnant as long as Chris is up to it. Hey, wasn't that pretty cool, my use of that word fruition?
Fruition.
Prevent undesirable genetic mutations in the human genome. People who wanted to have children would apply to make sure they had no diseases.
That's not how this works.
Either we have to do it through genetic engineering, or we have to let only the fit breed. We like to think that it is our right to breed as incontinently as we want to, have as many kids with whomever we want to.
And I'm a faith birth or a degenerate, whatever you want to call it.
Someone should tell this Einstein that genetic engineering isn't a thing yet. How do we go about determining who's fit? Big muscles, medical history, head size, dick size, body type, credit score. Most people consider eugenics immoral, unethical, a slippery slope to hell. I mean, who's got the right to tell these two people that they can't love, fuck, and have babies? This guy is prima facie evidence that an education is important. Intellect alone isn't enough.
Prima facie.
Future generations of mankind are being saddled with the results of what we do.
No shit, Sherlock.
Or don't do.
No shit, Sherlock.
Freedom is not necessarily a right. It is a privilege that you have to earn. A lot of people abuse their freedom, and that is something that people have to be trained not to do.
Look how giddy this ignorant fuck is getting a little bit of attention. Freedom is a privilege you have to earn? Chris is an American saying this stupid shit. It's like he fell out of the idiot tree, hit all the branches, climbed back up, and then fell out of it again.
But who? Who does this training?
Well, I'd be perfectly willing to do it myself. Just put me in charge.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play.
If only society had recognized Chris's brilliance from the time he'd written his book when he was 2 years old, he'd have solved all of civilization's problems if he'd only been given a chance.
At the age of 3 or 4, I started writing a book.
Did it put you young whippersnappers in your place?
Hardly. We laughed until our teeth fell out.
Little red pair of shoes with little brass buckles on them that I really loved, and I thought that buckle was a beautiful word, so I pointed to the buckle on one of these shoes and said, "Buckle." Shortly thereafter, I started talking in sentences. I seemed to have an understanding of syntax, and so I was a very early talker. Buckle, buckle.
This fucking guy actually wants a cookie for speaking his first word, and he wants us all to believe that he remembers it and why he spoke it.
Buckle. I heard my mother talking about this little girl. Becky already knew how to read. I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to be beaten by her. She didn't seem especially intelligent to me, and I just knew I could out-accelerate her.
Jesus Christ, that's all kind of baggage for anyone to have to carry around for 50-ish years. Keep in mind, Mommy was talking about Becky, probably with a friend, who Chris doesn't even seem to know. He couldn't abide Mommy talking good about another child who could possibly be older than him, or likely his sister, and then he balled up his fist and he scrunched his nose, and he went straight to reading Melville.
If his chest had been a cannon, he would have shot his heart upon it.
What?
Bobby Dick.
Life is so much more insane, wonderful, complex, outrageous, beautiful, fascinating, and disturbing. But what if I can't outread Becky when I'm in the 2nd grade? I'm gonna be a loser my entire life. Mommy has Becky smarter than I am. No, sweetheart, you'll be a smarty super as pants ever, and you'll do wonderful, awesomeness stuff.
I had this knowledge, this utter knowledge that someday I would do something qualified me as being a genius. I could get straight A's in school without doing a thing.
Chris admits he was a problem child and says he spent most of his time in the library, as if that was his idea, and I think he forgot most of us people call it detention. Also, straight A's doing nothing isn't how school works. Chris wants us all to think he got straight A's, not doing homework, getting hundreds on all of his tests, and skipping the lectures is just nonsense. Finally, best of luck with someday doing something to be called a genius. At best, he's a clown you hire to come and make a fool out of himself and get views on your YouTube channel. That reminds me, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about Chris in the comments. Maybe I'm the one with blinders, and this stuff is super serious and makes a lot of sense.
And the logico-metaphysical structure of logos with which Jesus is identified. In stark contrast to Buddha and Muhammad, Jesus lived his life out in the real world as an ordinary working man, and took the hits as they came without becoming apathetic or sociopathic. That's what we're supposed to do as human beings.
Yes, sir, we do believe she was just about ready to come to that realization, but she's not so certain herself, and that we said in another second that she would appear to prove that. That was in that 1/82nd verse there.
There could be somebody a lot smarter than I am out there. There could be an entire planet full of beings, every single one of which is a lot smarter than I am. I can't say. But I do know that in my life I have not encountered many people with the depth of understanding that I have regarding certain things.
Woman used to be the only known cure for pedantry, and in some cases severe pedantry. But hashish is really the main cure.
You know, this asshole says he'd take on any academic anywhere, always, but all I can find are these softcore interviews of blustering and these soy boys going, while bobbling their heads in agreement. Chris talks about his disagreements in the high Q community, where he's included in these email carbon copies, and he postures without ever sharing their disagreement. You know, that who, what, where, when, and why thing.
What?
You know, how you said you're starting to see what a shallow bastard that he is.
Do I think that makes me better than everybody else? No. I still work in a bar. How good could I possibly think I am?
I'd say you're as arrogant as any person I've ever seen. Now let's skip backward to 2 + 2 = 4.
We have to have a philosophical framework, an actual ethical structure that we can look at and say, well, this is without a doubt the right way of thinking. Within that framework, we derive an advanced ethics. An ethic that can be taught without fear in elementary school, grade school, secondary school, and in our colleges and universities.
Always, when uneducated idiots think they know what's best for everyone, they don't actually want to teach people. Their plan is to indoctrinate. I can summarize Chris's preschool to PhD class right now. There's 2 genders based on sex at birth. Jesus hates queer. Worship people who claim to be the smartiest and elevated to the spiritual positions. The smart guy who can play the 4D chess blindfolded and never contributed anything to society except for breaking up bar fights because he happened to be in the right place, a bar, at the right time, and because he spent so much time there they started paying him to pour ice in the urinals. This This is the guy who's so bright he's too good for a light. His sister wife tried to help him out with an incandescent lamp and it agitated him. He ain't having none of that shit, so he went on for 4 hours and talked like this.
This is what he does. So if you deny God and you basically you're cutting your line of communication with God because you hate him so badly, then God can no longer see you, no longer wants to see you, and can no longer accept you into himself because he's totally consistent.
And what is that supposed to be?
I'm just a frightened old man.
Don't listen to him! These ogres are crafty.
It's just not something that God can afford to tolerate because something that is perfect cannot absorb or assimilate imperfection into himself.
This guy reminds me of a white Neil deGrasse Tyson. He even sounds like him a little bit. Seriously, I'll show you what I'm talking about.
That is your father painted green. No, it's Shrek, honest! Ow! Take him away!
Two fists here, okay? So I'm feeling this one, but now I feel that where's my gravitational allegiance?
Right, you don't know where to go.
Am I going to come through?
Right.
But then am I going to go that way or this way?
We have to start looking for possible alternative sources of leadership. I don't see anybody on the top of the heap now who is capable of doing this. They've all been co-opted by the system. They have too much to lose by deviating from what is now a barren path.
Of fucking course. What was I thinking? It's the system that's broken, and rando ignoramuses should be put in charge and given absolute power over planet Earth because Chrissy says so.
I am Dorothy, the small and meek.
Doctors, Nobel laureates are all victims of the man, and higher education is holding us all back. All we need to do to better the planet is let Chris and his big jughead make all the decisions for all of us, but we're all hating on him because he's obviously so fucking brilliant.
I want to go home.
Could it be you?
Who knows? It could be you.
But could you provide such a framework?
Yes, I could. I've already done so. Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe. The CTMU.
The JG Jojo C? What is that?
The CTMU is Chris's opus magnum that he published in the PCID, and we could look at the first 22 page, and it starts off like this. Among the most recent developments in science are complexity theory, the theory of self-organizing systems, and modern information of intelligent design theory, which investigate the deep relationship between self-organization and evolutionary biology in a scientific context. Not preemptively close to teleological causation, bucking the traditional physical reductionism of the hard science, complexity theory has given rise to a new trend, informational reductionism, which holds that the basis of reality is not matter and energy, but information. Unfortunately, this new form of reductionism is as problematic as the old one. Let's consider that first paragraph for a second. Is it as bad as Dr. Kent Hovind's doctoral thesis that starts off with, "My name is Kent Hovind"? My college professor would have painted this thing red. Look at this first paragraph. He forgot to indent. It's a page long. He used justified margins, 500 commas, random quotations from sources that he thinks he's citing. Like, it's so bad. Like, it's really bad. He also meant to use the word effect, not affect. And then there's that thing about a material transducer. And I was like, what in the hell is that? And I typed it in Google and it said,
"You're an idiot."
Chris includes figures and diagrams so he can illustrate to us little pea brains what he's talking about. I encourage everyone to go over and read the free preview that includes some awesome diagrams like -1 plus +1 equals 0. If you do head over that way, be sure to bring your dressing because this is some dry word salad. And as far as I can tell, nonsense. He cites other people's work as a desperate attempt to give his some legitimacy, but I don't know. Go check it out for yourself.
It shows that we're all a part of the same universal self. All men are related in ways they can't necessarily discern on this plane of reality.
Chris loves making up wordy nonsense stuff, and this one caught my eye. Conspansion. It's a verb noun alternating process by which reality evolves. Contraction during space expanse explosion as viewed from Earth. All of this is nonsense. Like, pause it and read it for yourself. He says that everything from the universe is versus expansive implosions. When I was a child, I did childish things. I agree. We're all part of the universe. We're all related. We're all the same species. But then he says that shit about multiple planes of reality trash. Like, we might as well be talking about the rules to the room of requirement in Harry Potter. I've done all of the drugs too. Like, I've held the question to the answer 42 in my mind before, and then I come down and realize what I was thinking was fucking dumb.
We're all the same. We all share a basic fundamental identity with each other, which means that we should all be trying to help each other and cooperate with each other to make this a better place to live.
What up?
Crips. That's probably a better name for the guy. Chris absolutely doesn't believe that. If you're in his out group, he can just reprogram your ass. Chris is actually a Jesus freak, and somewhere he opined that Buddha and Muhammad, they're totally real people, but because Jesus was a working man, an electrician, that makes a hell of a lot more sense, so he must be God. It's like he doesn't know that Muhammad was a traitor. You know, not a trader, like a trader, the guy who moved goods.
What's his word?
Merchant. That's the word I was looking for. Chris talks of ethics, and I feel like his brain was glitch if he was ever told about the trolley car problem. I was wondering if Chris could draw me in a game of tic-tac-toe if I go first, but I'm almost positive he could beat me at anything without ever meeting me.
As it is now, everybody's trying to run his own show here. We can't have that.
Wait, we can't have that? Really? How fucking dare I try to run my own destiny? There's this quote I know, and I'll spare you the tomorrows and tomorrows. It's a tale told by a moron idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
But everyone would have to agree.
Well, it's kind of hard to disagree with the premise that 2 + 2 = 4. Isn't it?
I would like a mustache.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, it is really difficult to disagree with 2 + 2 = 4, but that in no way whatsoever makes it analogous to the stupid shit you just said. See, that's the misdirection. Say something really dumb and then ask the audience a stupid question, and then stare at me with those dead shark eyes.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
Yes, we can call the universe, for want of a better term, the mind of God. God is the principle of consistency, the principle of cohesion that holds the universe together. We're all little pieces of God. We're all one.
That Christian God, he's a real special thing. He's the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, the 4 fundamental forces of the universe, energy and matter. He's you and we. See, Chris can make a straight line into a circle and triangles. I'd love to ask this guy a basic math question without giving him any lifelines. -1 minus -1 equals what?
It's me, your old friend Darwin the dolphin. Think of me when you smoke DMT.
I'm taking a lot more risks for a lot less money and fewer benefits. You've got to concentrate on what you're doing when you're breaking up a fight, but the rest of the time, my mind is usually someplace else. Off in another world. A mental world. My own private space. Despite the fact that very loud music is playing.
We call him Pickles.
On account of it's like he's floating in a jar?
Exactly.
As a final thought, Chris weaves this story that tugs at my heartstrings. He says that his dad went out for cigarettes and never came back, and stepdad was a maniac. chained him up to horses with padlocks because they would jump the fences like deer, and no matter how tall he would make them, the damn horses kept jumping them, and all he got as a reward was punched in the face. And then when he was older, he beat stepdad up and he never came back.
The Oracle's visions are recorded on these colored balls. Green is larceny, black is fraud.
What's pink polka dots?
Clown slaughter.
If the fence wasn't high enough, and they were never high enough, this horse would just get away. So he entrusted me with making sure that the horse did not escape. The first time the horse got away, the old man beat the crap out of me, just like I knew he would.
That sucks. Chris was beat up and tied to wild horses, smarter than he was, who had the bright idea to escape, be damned. Like, don't get me wrong, I empathize, but a stallion, he wants to fuck all the other horses, jumping tall fences and running through town and up creeks, sort of suggests that Chris might be misremembering exactly how it happened. After all, dude remembers his first word, why he spoke it, and he's figured out that peekaboo game, y'all. He's got this other buddy who's like 85, and he's still confused by it, because after all, that guy has a tiny head. It doesn't take much to domesticate a horse. I've seen them broke before. This dude, Steve, he'd take them to the ground, and he'd say, all you gotta do is keep them from lifting up their head, and they'll never stand up.
Next, he went down and got himself a heavy galvanized dog chain and a couple of padlocks. Puts one end of the dog chain around the horse's neck and padlocks it. And he says, come here. And I went over there, and he put the other end around my waist, and he padlocked that.
I'm calling the police. Very simple.
And he drives off. It was only a matter of time. The horse naturally went through the barbed wire fence, and it dragged me up a dirt street and part of the way down Main Street before the chain broke.
Really? Horse shit.
Why, though? Why did the horse want to take off? You're chained up Saul style to a horse, neither of you going anywhere without the other, and for some outrageous reason, you couldn't keep it calm, and it had to run through a barbed wire fence, which is difficult, by the way, trying to get away from you. I was on a horse one time trailblazing with a guy named John, and we got into a yellow jacket's nest, and I almost got decapitated. But, the horse spooked for a reason.
I was covered with blood in my eyes. I was like wiping my eyes now. Finally, I managed to get home, and I'm walking up the front steps, and all of a sudden, kabam! I find myself flat on my back. I couldn't breathe. I was going,
If you're searching the lines for a point, well, you've probably missed it.
There's the old man standing over me and says, I told you not to let that blanket horse get away.
There was never anything there in the first place.
Maybe it's all true and I'm a shithead. A better person would stand up and limply clap and say, I'm so proud of you for losing the 4th grade spelling bee. Hey, your kid's the smart one. I'm sorry your father sucked and should be in prison, and it's all his fault you're a failure. And all of that and a slice of cheese and a jughead can't buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Chris isn't the only person to have been held hostage at gunpoint. I can't even tell it. Okay, I was held hostage at gunpoint. You don't hear me fucking whining about it.